don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just
recording?
yeah. Just about to.
Can I get a cameo?
Sponsored by whatever that package was, if you saw it. See ya. Okay, yet again. Hello there. I'm Scribbler. That was Big Daddy Mo. If you don't know him, follow him. Yeah, entertaining character. Also, our podcasting channel, Words and Personality. Follow us there. When I last read, I left off halfway through Chapter 9, Standing Army. So, I'm going to continue from there. They found a spot that seemed appropriate for the latrine. Gerd retrieved a hammer, which was also a large rock tied to a stick. Hollis sat on one side of the future privy, and Ash on the other. As they both began to meditate, the earth shook and the ground began to crack. Rock and pebbles began being picked up out of the shattered ground. Both boys fell into a trance while swaying. The rocks and other pebbles began to be thrown out of the vicinity of the spot they had chosen. A whirlwind of flying debris was all around them. Hollis and Ash had protective barriers on them where the rocks that would fly towards them would stop in mid-air when they got too close and would be pulled back out into the flurry. Gerd dropped his hammer and jumped behind Hollis to get protection from the flying soil. Just as Peter raised the shovel before his face, deflecting a rock that had happened to be flying at him at that exact moment. He began to walk back to hide behind the trees with Gerd, shovel held before them, as they acquired a few bruises, since they were not immune from the turbulent activity. The two had stuck with it until the sun had set. Then suddenly they began to open their eyes. The second their eyes opened, everything that had been flying through the air around them in a flurry fell to the ground in one quick drop. "What the abyss, guys," Peter cursed. "Warn a guy before throwing rocks at us," he exclaimed. Gerd peered out from around a boulder where he had taken cover. He was sporting a bruise over his left eye. "Is it safe yet?" he asked. "Yes," Hollis replied in a trance-like tone. "What happened to your face?" Ash asked in surprise. Hiding behind Hollis was a mistake, Gerd said, as Hollis turned to look at him. "Did you know that everything that hits you bounces in weird directions?" he asked. "Sorry, man," Hollis said meekly. "Actually, we had no clue what would happen," Ash said, shrugging his shoulders. "We knew we could do this together, but we have never done magic like this for such a long period of time or undertaken such a big task." "How deep is it?" Peter asked interestedly. "No clue," responded Hollis. We won't be able to tell until the water goes down," Ash replied. Peter and Gerd walked up to peek into the gaping opening. "Wow," they both said as they looked upon the new massive hole, which was filled with a murky water. have to wait for the water to sink back into the ground before they could judge the depth. Well, I guess we can go back now, Ash said, trying to get up from the ground as his legs grudgingly woke up. We can check on it after the training tomorrow. As a group, they went to find where they were supposed to sleep. The following day, after the short training, which was really more of holding a stick and exercising than training, they went back to the hole they had created. The hole had not caved in on itself, and it was pretty deep. Deep enough that if a man was to fall in, he would need help to get out. Huh, Ash admired. Ha, I think it is safe to say we are done, Peter said excitedly. Gerd, go get the proctor. Gerd returned with the man in charge. Do you guys want to quit now? The man asked as he walked up, but as he neared the hole, he became speechless. So what is my next task? Ash asked. How did you do this? The man asked. You were not supposed to be able to finish this for a long time yet. They are casters, Peter said, flatly. Who? The man asked, turning to question Peter. Them, Gerd pointed to Hollis and Ash. The man looked at them and exhaled. Why did you not tell me you were mages? You never mentioned that it was supposed to be disclosed, Ash responded. The man seemed confused by what Ash had said. You two do not belong under my direction, he finally said. They all looked at each other. Then where are we supposed to be? Ash asked. You are supposed to be under the command of Scale. He is the crotchety old man who trains all the casters, the man said without interest. Go to the gate and tell them you are to report to Scale, the man ordered, and then walked away, talking to himself. Well, I guess me and Hollis will be in a different area, Ash said, looking at Peter and Gerd. Hopefully we can meet up when there is free time. They said a short parting goodbye, then Ash and Hollis went back to the main gate. At the mention of Scale, the guard became pale and called to a rookie guard to escort them to Scale. The rookie also paled, even to the point of getting some green in his cheeks. After being instructed of his detail, Scale lived out a distance from Standing, in a cave where he would train the mages. En route, the young guard told Ash and Hollis stories of how the old man would treat those who wandered too close to his property, and how only mages seemed to have the strength to stay. The guard had fear mixed with awe in his description of Scale's reputation. As they got closer, Ash could hear wrestling in the woods. The skies grew darker. The deeper they went in, the further they got into... The deeper they went in, the skies grew darker the deeper they went in. The further they got into the woods, the more it started to look as if the region had begun to die. Massive webs covered the trees and bushes, and Ash could feel the presence of a shadow. I know what this is, Ash excitedly said, and all of a sudden, Ash clapped his hands together, then pushed outwards. pushed outwards. Clapped his hands together, then pushed outwards, a technique taught to him by his father. All the world seemed to bend outward, then settled back down, and as it settled back down, the illusion of death dissolved. The trees returned to green and healthy. The sky turned blue, all the webs coating everything blue to nothing. Wow, Hollis said. How did you do that? It was something my father taught me. What? The guard, still cowering, inquired. Oh, it's nothing, Ash said, taking the lead, as he was now able to see a clear path ahead. You can go back now. We can go the rest of the way without you. Without asking if they were sure, the guard turned and began to run back the other way. Thank you, he shouted gratefully while running off back toward the city. Ash and Hollis walked to an open space in the woods. There were several men. There were at least 40 that he could see in the clearing, all in a meditative pose, each seeming to hold a boulder in the air before them, in a technique used to improve the mage's control. Beyond that was a cave. Ash pointed to the cave, and Hollis nodded. As they reached the mouth of the cave, a strong force began to push them back to the clearing. Ash responded quickly, spinning and jumping to the side, leaving Hollis to take the hit. As Ash landed, he retaliated, sending down the mouth of the cave a blast of power. Ash looked over his shoulder back at Hollis. Sorry, man, you okay? A chuckle came from inside the cave. Finally, a smart one, said a scratchy voice. But what if I... The voice trailed off. Ash felt a presence from beneath him. Jumping forward, right. Ash felt a presence beneath him. Ash felt the presence beneath him, jumping forward right in the mouth of the cave. As the ground he was standing on lifted, he reached back with one hand, keeping his attention riveted in the darkness of the cave, while throwing his senses outward. Ash's hand clenched, and he swung it over his shoulder, letting go. The rock that had burst out from the ground was now being thrown down the cave. Ash grew worried when he did not hear the boulder strike anything. But then, off in the darkness, he heard the stone fall on stone, followed by a chuckle. Interesting choice, the voice said. First, you walked in as if you cast off my illusion, so I didn't hear you coming. I guess you sent the guide away. Pity. I like toying with them. Then you sensed my attack, and were able to jump just out of range, and were able to predict my next attack and use it to complement your next assault. Intriguing you truly are. The man was excitedly critiquing all of Ash's actions. And I must admit, it is a new one to me. Using the earth I threw up at you, as you used it, the force I put into it, while adding your own. Yes, 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 you have some talent. More so than your friend, anyway. Ash turned around, remembering that Hollis was down on the ground. Hollis was not so lucky. He had been knocked to the ground with the first attack. Then, when he had stood back up, he dropped onto the hole created by the rock and pulled out of the ground. Okay. Then, when we had stood back up, he dropped into the hole created by the rock that he was pulled out of the ground. Hollis was just crawling out of the hole by the time the old voice mentioned him. "Oh, sorry, man," Ash said, turning to help Hollis out. "It's okay. I have never been good at thinking on my feet," Hollis confessed. A clank, clank, clank could be heard coming closer to them. "It takes a smart man to know his limitations," the old man said as he walked out of the cave and stepped into the light with his last clank. He was a tall, elderly man, but unlike most elderly men who stood as if the world has beaten them down, he stood tall, shoulders back, holding himself with pride. Hair as white as snow, a short, pointed beard, sharp eyes as brown as freshly tilled soil, and a face that looked to hold vast intelligence. The most defining aspect of his attire was not the reddish-black robe he wore, but what had made the clanking sound with each step. The man held an ivory bone staff in his hand. Ash was surprised at the length of such a thin bone. He thought all of that in a moment as the old man continued. But it takes a true mage to be able to turn a weakness into a strength. The old man looked at both of them. "You can call me Scale." The end of chapter 9. I'll continue chapter 10 probably next week. Need to get back in the rhythm of reading. Reading. Skip the week. Yeah. Thank you all for listening to me read. Thank you all for watching. Doodles.